on to video number 2 of Girls and Autism, Educational, Family and Personal Perspectives. So the first chapter in the book is written by Katie Buckingham, on page 19. Now Katie Buckingham is a young autistic woman and she's founder of Altruist Enterprises, which is a provider of resilience and mental health awareness training to organisations. So she's a mental health advocate, and she was diagnosed with Asperger's age 16. Katie sees autism as an advantage. I personally disagree with that. Obviously, each to their own, and everyone experiences autism differently. So, if she, sees her own personal autism as an advantage, that's absolutely great. And I wish I could see it like that or experience autism like that. But obviously, we're all different. I personally do not see my own autism as an advantage because it has held me back in life, and there were many things that if I wasn't autistic I could have achieved. Like, I really wanted to be a teacher when I was when I was in my late teens, and I was contemplating doing a PCGE, and because at this point in time I didn't realise how many issues I had. Like I said, I didn't really have the awareness. I didn't really understand myself and what my strengths and weaknesses were. I thought I lived in a kind of bubble where I thought I could do anything, I had like these real OCDs and phobias and problems, but I just kind of thought, I had this just like fantasy world, I guess, where I just thought they would all be resolved, and it's really, it's really annoying that I haven't been able to do what I wanted to do, and if I didn't have my issues, I would have a career by now, because I would, So autism has held me back in my ambition, so I can't say that autism is an advantage for me, because, I can't work, and that's no fun. I'd love to be able to work and be a contributing member of society, and my autism, I've talked about my own autism, has stolen that from me. I'm just being realistic, that's what it has done, because of all my issues, it's just not realistic, and I've had to come to terms with that and accept that and find other ways to bring meaning to my life, which, is an ongoing thing. And I'm not a negative person by any means, I'm just very realistic. I can't say autism is an advantage, because that is not true, that wouldn't be being honest. But Katie sees her autism as an advantage. Although I would disagree, she actually says it, but autism is an advantage. It would have been better if she put, I see autism as an advantage to me, but instead she says autism is an advantage, but of course everyone's very different, so I don't think you can make sweeping statements like that, just like I can't say to everyone autism is not an advantage, because it might maybe contain some, because that would be a sweeping statement as well. But she attended Peter Jones Enterprise Academy, and then she set up Altruist Enterprises in 2015. So she's very into public speaking, and I love public speaking as well. I wish I could do what she can do, but I have got quite a few issues, and my OCD on top of my autism. Obviously, OCD is an additional disability. If I didn't have OCD, obviously I'd be less disabled than I am. But it's like that double whammy thing, another intersectionality, isn't it? I'm female, I'm autistic, I also have mental health OCD. So it's layer upon layer. But yeah, so like me, she likes public speaking. She's actually done a TED Talk, which I think you can see on YouTube, called "I'm Fine, Let's Stop Masking Our Mental Health Issues." And she's written things for the Guardian papers and Evening Standard. She writes for the Huffington Post on mental health. She said that she could not believe it when she got diagnosed, and she's only ever seen boys on TV. So she said she could hold a conversation if she'd had a group of friends. That's, again, is unlike me, because I actually, as a teenager, I really, really struggled to hold a conversation. I got better at it at the end of my teens, when I think over time you sort of copy people, and I'd seen a lot of films, and eventually I kind of worked it out and I scripted it. And now I can hold a conversation with like people, a very basic conversation. I can do it, but it's a lot of effort. But I can do it now. The point being, I can do it now, but it doesn't come naturally to me, and it takes a lot of effort. But of course, people who see me hold a conversation, say my support worker, might not see that, and then I get people telling me, "Oh, you're socialising well right now," because they just see, the output, but they don't get how many years of effort this has taken. And when I was a teenager, I couldn't do it. So, it's had to be learnt, a bit like what Sarah Wilde said earlier, But autistics can get to the stage where they can hold a conversation. It's not a black and white binary thing. And I think that's what people need to remember. Just because autism affects social skills doesn't mean you can't learn some of them. You just learn them via a different route. But certainly when I was a teenager, I really struggled to hold a conversation, and I didn't have a group of friends. I had one friend when I started, but that only lasted a couple of weeks because then she said I was too clingy. So I can't quite relate to that, but we're all different. She had been in touch with psychologists most of her life. So she'd been seen by services, but they just hadn't identified her autism, a very common female experience. After diagnosis, she could get CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, that took her autism into account. She had thought that something was wrong with her, and she didn't understand why she was different to other people. And now finally, when she got that diagnosis, she could understand herself. I can definitely relate to that because I went through my teens thinking, what the hell is wrong with me? That kind of happened more towards the end of my teens. At the start of my teens, I didn't really question things. I started to question things only towards the end of my teens when I also started to mask more. Because I came to masking quite late. I never really used to mask at all. And I think that probably spared me quite a few difficulties when I was younger, actually. I didn't really have that awareness. I didn't really... You know, some autistics talk about masking at a very young age. I didn't start masking until for mid to late teens. I was slow to that. But when I did start to mask, I suddenly thought, and I also developed that awareness that actually my behaviour was inappropriate, and it finally twigged, something happened in my brain. I was just like, right, okay, I need to sort myself out. But I came to that rather late, towards the end of my teens. But again, I did have those feelings of, what is wrong with me? And so I can relate to that. So I just came to it a bit later. And obviously, once you get that diagnosis, you then start to understand yourself a bit more. She talks about how her parents regularly had meetings with a class teacher, educational psychologist and SENCO, special educational needs coordinator, to discuss her behaviour, yet very similar to me. Parents often called into school, what can we do for Anna? For teachers would say, what are you doing to help Anna? It was always passed on to my parents. Never, what can we do to help, but always, what are you doing to help Anna? My parents were often called into school, so I can relate to that. And obviously, I had an educational psychologist input assessment as well, but they didn't pick up the autism at that age. She says that she made her first group of friends in year 5, and she felt accepted for once. It's interesting that she mentions year 5, because I went through the whole of my primary school years without any peer group friends. The first friend I made was in year 5. I didn't have a group of friends, it was only just one friend. I couldn't play in groups, didn't understand groups. Whenever I did have, the rare occasions I did have a friend, it was really just one friend that I got very possessive and clingy with. I made my first friend in year 5. It was very up and down, but they were actually the best years of my life towards the end of primary school when I finally did make that friend, but sadly it didn't carry on into secondary school. And she says how before that she played on her own, yet a very common experience. I was often on my own in the playground. Even when I did finally make this friend, more often than not I was on my own because we often fell out because I was so clingy. She talks about how she always had anxiety, but at age 10 it got a lot worse, and that's a bit like me as well, because my anxiety got a lot worse around sort of age of 9 or 10. She has symptoms of anxiety disorder, she had panic attacks, she even ended up in hospital at one point. In my case, I didn't have panic attacks, it was more that I had like obsessive thoughts. And I didn't really understand that I was anxious at that age, because it was just my normal. I didn't understand anxiety as a concept. It was only when my parents were just saying that I was anxious, or just relax, Anna, that I finally came to think I'm an anxious person, but I had to be told that by others. It wasn't something that I understood myself, because why would you? At that age, it's just you're normal. You're not thinking I'm an anxious person. And I didn't really understand feelings anyway. I still don't. Obviously, I'm not. But now I do know I have anxiety, but only because other people have told me that. It's not something I would think. It's not something I registered myself. But my parents would go on about how anxious I was, and that's how I worked it out. In my case, it was more thoughts, not panic attacks, and I didn't have to go to hospital or anything. She said that she couldn't explain how she was feeling to her doctors and parents. So she was actually diagnosed with acid reflux when she was really anxious. Because she couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain how I was feeling. I was very closed. I didn't really talk at all about feelings. I still don't, so I don't get feelings. I was very closed and it was my parents just noticing my behaviour, and they started to think that maybe I had OCD and stuff, and then they also started to suspect I might be autistic as well when I was around teenager years, and more awareness of autism, and they started to put 2 and 2 together. But I was all in denial. I was like, no, I don't. I got very, very angry whenever my parents suggested that I might have OCD or autism. I got very angry. Because, I was just normal. So yeah, I couldn't explain it. So, and in her case, no one knew that her physical illness was really a manifestation of how she was feeling emotionally. So again, that shows how, your issues can often go unlooked if people aren't looking deeper and aren't looking beneath the surface. And she talked about how she often went and sat in a toilet cubicle at school during break to manage her anxiety. I can relate to that as well, because I often went to the toilet cubicles and locked myself into the toilet or into an empty classroom just to escape the noise and bustle and to be on my own for a bit. She says how a quiet room would have helped her cope at difficult times. Yeah, definitely I would have benefited from a quiet room at school. She talks about how she copied others to be accepted. So, for example, they might say, "Hi, are you alright?" And she would reply, "Yes," and walk off. But then she noticed that other students would reply, "Yes, thanks, are you?" And this got a better reaction. So she started doing that instead. So yeah, as I said, I started a first mask around sort of like my mid-teens. But I do remember how kids would sometimes wave their hand in front of my face like that, because sometimes I walk around looking rather vacant. But sometimes they would like say, "Hello, Anna," and I wouldn't reply. And I actually think, looking back on it, that maybe they were trying to like be nice and like, and maybe if I had like said hello or something, it might have helped me make friends. But at that time, I didn't get it. You were supposed to say hello back, so I just carry on walking. And sometimes I thought they were taking a mickey, but because I can't read people, but it might have been actually they were genuinely trying to relate to me. I don't know, because I can't read people. But yeah, so I can relate to that a bit. She talks about how anxiety got a lot worse at year 8 when it sort of relapsed. Yes, year 8 was a critical year for me as well. That's also when my anxiety started to get a lot worse around secondary school. It actually improved quite a bit in year 6, funny enough. It got worse for a bit, then it improved, again it got worse again, sort of around year 8 sort of periods, which is quite interesting. But she said she found it difficult to go to school or even leave the house without a panic attack. In my case, it wasn't that bad. I did manage to go to school. I think the school was part of my routine. It was kind of non-negotiable for me. But it was all inside, and I found it very hard to concentrate because of all the anxiety. But it was all inside more than being externalised so much. But in her case, it manifested physically in back pain. So she took time off school. So she took time off school. Where was I? Here we are. So, and she also talks about how her anxiety worsened during her GCSEs as she was diagnosed with OCD. I also got an OCD diagnosis when I went to my CBT first, when I started getting CBT when I was around sort of like 19 years old. She was medicated. I've never been medicated though.